Hey all, it's Nim or Nimicry if you're feeling professional, and welcome to the YouTube video. Now today was the day. Today was the day they released the Zhanjua Jade Palace, and I probably butchered that name terribly, so forgive me. We're gonna go over some things that have happened that I think are bad for the health of the Sword of Legends online community and game. But before we do that, if you like this type of content, going over solo, maybe talking about controversies, maybe you just like me, why don't you click that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with all the latest videos, and if you really want to go above and beyond, you can click the bell. That apparently gives notifications, as I have been informed, and I was told, hey Nim, you should mention it. So there we are. But without further ado, let's talk about the things that have happened that honestly, I'm not happy with. So we're here in the Sparkling Blossom Forest in the Zhanjua Jade Palace. Let's pull up the map. Should show some fun things here. So we got a lot of things. I don't know exactly where I'm going to be going because I haven't run the raid yet. We're actually running it on Saturday with my guild. But here's the thing, okay? This game has an interesting system, an interesting take. It is doing an instance lock as opposed to a loot lock. Now, you may ask, Nim, what is an instance lock and what is a loot lock? Alright, so for raids, it has an instance lock. This means that there are a certain number of bosses in this raid. I'd pull it up in the Dungeon Codex, but right now, to be honest, it's not real. It's not available. So this raid has a certain number of bosses, and let's say you and your team go hard, go as hard as they can, and they kill every boss but the last boss because hey, there's apparently a 4K DPS check, and you know it can be hard to get there until you get a little bit of gear, unless you're really bleeding edge, and even then you can still have some trouble. So, okay, you're like, all right. I know that I can't loot the raid more than once per week. I got that. I understand that I can't loot raid bosses more than once per week. You're a reasonable person. Here's where the instance lock comes in. You cannot join a group that is before the amount of progress that you've achieved that week until the reset. So that means you can't go in and help people. That means you can't go in and practice. Now, some people say, but Nim, what about easy mode? Listen, easy mode doesn't give any loot, right? It doesn't. Or if it gives loot, it's token stuff and it's not actual things that are upgrades. Who's going to do content that doesn't give loot? Really? There are too many games on the market, too many things that want your time to avoid doing that. So I don't believe that's the right strategy. Now, it might be the strategy for progress to learn the mechanics of fight, but most people aren't going to do that to go back and be like, okay, well, let me help you learn the fight that you can learn on your own. No, they're going to be in normal mode or higher in order to get the gear. Most games solve this problem, which is what is known as a loot lock. Meaning that, okay, you can run the content as many times as you want. You can run it until your eyes bleed. You can run it until your hands curl up into little things and you're like, oh, I can't hit my DPS stuff. You just are only going to get loot once per week per dungeon or raid or boss or whatever metric they decide to break it down. Fair enough. In fact, Sword of Legends Online does this already with hard mode dungeons. It already does this. The fact that you can loot your hard modes once per week. I did it tonight. It's Thursday when I'm recording this. It's actually kind of late, but we figured we'd get it done. And I looted all 5. So if I go and help my guild with the hard mode dungeons later in the week, I'm not going to get any loot. Now, luckily for me, I happen to be level 60. I'm not perfectly geared, but I do happen to be level 60. Or I level 60. So that's a helpful thing there. But I can help them. I can run, I can practice, I can do something, and it's productive, as opposed to getting a whole raid that knows it's not going to get loot. Nobody wants to do that. So I don't know why they made the raid instance locked as opposed to loot locked. That, to me, is a huge oversight, especially because, let's say, a lot of MMOs devolve into raid locking behavior. So what do I mean by this? I mean that, okay, people get their characters to a reasonable level of power where they can essentially coast. And what they'll do is, okay, well, raid's on Wednesday. All right, well, I'm going to log in on Wednesday. Boom. I log in, I do the log, I like, okay, I'm going to play something else for the rest of the time. If you're running an MMO, especially an MMO with a and let me explain, very extensive cash shop, you want people in your game. You want people in your game, because if they're not in your game, they're not in your economy. If they're not in your economy, there's no chance they're going to press you and occasionally spend some points, or some dust, or some coins, or some other currency that may happen. So again, I don't understand that at a new game, in a crowded market, and yes, the current, the former king has been dethroned, essentially, due to lack of development and toxic corporate culture. You guys know what I'm talking about. The answer, though, is don't do an instance lock. Do a loot lock. You already do it. Just extend it. Just extend the loot lock to the other stuff. It makes it easier. There is one other thing, though, that we want to bring up, and it's about loot itself. So let's bring that up here. We'll go over here real quick. All right. So, this is a screenshot about the loot rules when you have a certain mastery composition. So, a share of the loot is created for each player individually. If players in the group have already made progress in eliminating a boss, only individual collection mode can be used. In the following cases, there is a decreased probability that a share of the loot will be generated for effective players. The larger the number of extra players, the lower the probability. There are no restrictions on group instances joined via matchmaking, and only individual collection mode can be used. The total number of players in an average group instance amounts to less than or equal to 13/14 to 17, 18 to 20 players. The number of players with the same class mastery is higher than 3, 4, 5 respectively, or the number of players with the same class higher than 5, 6, or 8 respectively. So, that's a lot of numbers throwing out stuff. What does that actually mean? First, I do not like the chance of getting decreased loot. You are artificially putting your thumb on the scale in a game that has already a randomized loot table. Now, I know I can get seal stones, and I can get parchments, and I can buy stuff, and I can make stuff, but you're actually, you're kind of cuffing one hand behind my back a little bit. Because what if my guild really likes Reapers, so we have a lot of Reapers? Or what if Reaper's really good? What if we need what if we need a class stack in order to overcome the DPS check that's put into the game? That happens. Some games aren't perfectly balanced. Believe it or not, I know. Shocker. But some things aren't perfectly balanced. In fact, I'm willing to bet that this game isn't perfectly balanced. Now, I'm sure the devs do a great work. I'm not mad at the devs for the balancing. It's very hard. I'm not going to say it's easy because that would be a lie. But you put in systems like this, and you intentionally hamper the player. So, what does it mean? It means that if you have a 13 group, if you have higher than 3 of the same class mastery, in a 14 to 17 group, higher than 4 of the same class mastery, or in an 18 to 20 group, you have more than 5 of the same class mastery, there will be a decreased loot chance for those extra players. So all the Reaper players, let's say we go with Reaper, right? Let's say you have 6 Reapers in a 20 player group. Then they will all have a lower chance at getting loot. Now they may say, oh damn, this is to definitely combat, class stacking and things, and to make sure that everybody, it's let people play the game. Don't artificially handcuff them. Because you're let me play the game and let me have fun the way I want to have fun, right? Don't tell me how to have fun, because if you tell me how to have fun, yeah, some people might agree with you, but some people are going to be like, no, let me have fun the way I want to have fun. Then the second thing, of course, is the number of players in the same class. If, in 13, if you have, let's say, 5 Reapers as opposed to 5 occultists, or 3 occultists, or if you have, let's say, 6 berserkers, as opposed to having a split, or 8 bards, because maybe bards are very powerful here, and that means every player in that class is going to be affected by decreased loot. Now, let's break down. There are 6 classes. Now, I know that there's a 20-person raid, and you can figure this out, but there's only so many healers you can have. There's only so many tanks. Rest are DPS. So the question is, do you have more melee DPS in order to save your range slots for heals? Because, hey, you might want to bring, like, 3 bards and a summoner. You might want to do that. Ultimately, and I'm going to take this down now. Here we go. Ultimately, it bothers me that they're trying to handcuff the player base. I don't like that. Let me play the game how I want to play it. I understand some restrictions are important. You don't want people to farm the first raid boss over and over and over and over and over again to get all of the gear that they possibly can from the first raid boss, so they go to the second one. And I understand that can be degenerate gameplay, that can, you know, short-circuit a system of progression that you're trying to set up. But you telling me that I can't help people out in an area where they could get loot, or that if we decide to class stack on a farm raid or something after progress, and hell, even for progress, that I might get less loot, that bothers me. It bothers me a lot. I'm not happy with this this implementation, Solo. Now, listen, you can turn it around. You can literally just reverse some of that stuff. You have the power to do that. Will you do it? Probably not. And nobody in Solo is going to see this video, probably. But if you want to, you can share it with them. Now, listen, I know this has been a bit of a rant. I promise I actually do enjoy the game. I did get 60 tonight, and as you can see, I even went through the process of doing a little bit of the glamour. A little bit of the glamour thing. And I even have an exclusive cosmetic that GameForge sent me. That little back thing there, which is pretty cool. It's a moon cosmetic, so it's big. Anyways, guys, listen. My name was Nim, and I want to tell you that if you guys like this stuff, why don't you subscribe to the channel? You can like, you can comment, you can follow me on Twitter at Nimicry. You can also check out the Discord link down below if you want to chat. I do my best to respond. Also, for those who are interested, there is a Patreon. That's patreon.com/Nimicry. Again, that's patreon.com/Nimicry, Nimicry, for the truly immortal heroes among you. I do a lot of solo videos. I do a lot of MMORPG videos, so hopefully you enjoy the content. It was a pleasure to make this for you, despite the topic being a little spicy, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.